Welcome. This is Prime News. I'm Mike Galanos. It's just so heartbreaking. Right now, cops in Roanoke, Virginia, are searching for the body of an adorable 2-year-old boy, Aveion Lewis. Well, now we're learning today Child Services may have failed him by putting him back with his parents. Aveion had been in foster care for much of his short life. Now, at 15 months, he weighed only 8 pounds. That's the weight of many newborns. Now, the group that put him in foster care recommended he never go back to his parents. In foster care, he was gaining weight, thriving. So why did mom and stepdad get him back? Who made that decision? We'll take your calls. 1-877-TEL-HLN is the number. Joining us to talk about this, hopefully someone can shed some light on this. Nicole DeBoard, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, works in family law as well. Also with us, John Lusage, former criminal investigator. And joining us as well tonight, investigative journalist Michelle Sagona. You can check out her website, michellesagona.com, always for updates. Michelle, before we get into that, what happened with foster care, any updates on what happened to Aveion and where is his body?
At this point, the search has been called off temporarily, Mike, because of the weather in Roanoke. But they do plan to continue once the weather passes over to go back out and search for his body. They do have expert search teams that were on the ground for a very long period of time, searching the waterways, searching by ground, hoping to come across this child. They do know for sure that he was not alive when that 911 call was made, and the alleged abduction was allegedly made by the father, by the stepfather. Back on January 14th, the stepfather did confess that Aveion was in fact dead before that time. They just don't know where his body is. So investigators need your help tonight. If you are in that area, if you have any idea where this child may be, they want to hear from you.
Great point, Michelle. Okay, Michelle, I'll stay with you. Let's get to the care that this little guy received. And we've talked about it. Now I think we're getting a little clearer picture. He goes into foster care, what is it, May of 2008. He's 15 months old, and he weighed 8 pounds?
8 pounds. And this is what's interesting about this. There is the CHIP, it's called CHIP. It's the health partnership out of Roanoke. And basically the CEO, Robin Haldeman, just told me around 3:30 this afternoon. I'm sorry, because all of this is kind of new and just coming in. Basically that they had been with Aveion early on inside the family's house, helping. They stop by monthly to check on the welfare of this child and to make sure that parenting skills are going on as planned, making sure that the children are developed appropriately, and they noticed that he wasn't. So they did in fact file a report with Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services did their own investigation. They came in and they did in fact remove Aveion from the family. Now, he was gone. He did in fact excel, and he was doing so well with his adoptive parents. Robin told me that they did have a great relationship with Aveion throughout that period. Then, evidently, the court system puts Aveion back in the home with his mother and the stepfather. So CHIPS, the program, goes back into the home to be able to continue their service with Aveion, but they were denied just because it's not mandatory for them to be there. It's a voluntary program. So at that point, Aveion was by himself with no one checking on him.
Okay. So many ways to go with this. John, I'll go to you. 8 pounds at 15 months. I mean, aren't investigators in at this point? That is a dangerously low weight.
Well, you know, Mike, they were. Child Protective Services were there. They did their job. They told that this kid should not be back with the parents, and the courts return it. Again and again, we see government failure after government failure that ends up hurting these little children. There were all the bells and whistles were there, all the flags went up, all the signs were there. They picked up on it, and then the courts returned this baby back to them and do not have any mandatory oversight. That is criminal in itself.
I mean, we look at that cute little face, and it's almost like he's crying out from the grave. Again, police say he's dead. How could this happen? I want to bring in Nicole DeBoard. Nicole, I want to read a quote to you. Michelle mentioned her name, Robin Haldeman, CEO of this agency that helped Aveion get into the foster care. A simple statement saying that was our recommendation, that he not go back to the biological parents because he was thriving so much in foster care. How is anybody going to overrule that?
It's absolutely heartbreaking. And fortunately, most of the laws and most of the states require that biological parents basically have special consideration. There has to be a very high threshold to remove a child from the biological parent. That being said, it was there in this case. Obviously, the court system did fail this child. I mean, this is an absolute disaster, and there should have been certain protective measures put into place to make sure that the child was monitored even after he was placed back in the home. But
Okay.
that didn't happen.
No, okay. Well, let's talk about that for just a second here. Yes, we understand that a parent is going to get special consideration, a biological parent. But what do they have to prove? They leave Aveion leaves their care, and he weighs 8 pounds at 15 months. He thrives in foster care. I just don't see what they could have said or proved where they'd get him back, Nicole.
Absolutely. I tend to agree with you in this particular circumstance. In fact, this case seems to be, just from the evidence and the information that we've heard, to be so egregious that perhaps criminal charges really should have been considered. And in cases where criminal charges are pending, it's a little easier for the courts to do something to remove a child from this circumstance. And I'm not sure why that didn't happen here. That seems to be yet another failure in this case.
John, let me go to you on that front. Why not criminal charges? A 15-month-old at 8 pounds, and then he thrives after that. So we know that he could thrive. There's really not you can't pin this on a medical condition when he goes in a different home and does so well.
No, absolutely. And it's coming back to the system, which fails time and time again. These people are the problem. They've been the problem in the past, the problem in the future. And all of a sudden, you get this kid back, and then you deny the state from coming in and reviewing that kid and assessing that kid. There had to be a reason. Right then, they should have got a warrant for that house and went back. But they didn't.
Okay, we're going to continue our conversation. We'll talk with John about what kind of checkup should there have been and how often after he goes back with the parents. And what about the other kids? There are other kids in this home.